the companies or vendors that know how to sell to individual, slightly in a consumerized fashion, will certainly do better. Why should companies buy tools for individuals? We are headed into an economy that is going to be highly efficient. Because now, for the first time, your product can be used by many more folks than you even imagine.
It is accessible to a lot more wider audience than it has ever been.
Right. And that's how it should have been in the right from start. But AI is again democratizing. But you brought up an interesting point on why should companies buy tools for individuals? Like, companies are not telling us that you have to drive a certain car to come to work. Right. You drive your own car that suits you best.
Just get to work.
Right, just get to work, right? They're not saying you have to come in a Toyota or a BMW, like you do your own car, right? So why are they telling you have to use this tool to be effective, right? And that is again a reflection of the winner take all. It's a reflection of lack of flexibility. Now, if somebody really likes one tool that works great, they feel like they are productive, I agree with your assertion that in the future they'd be able to connect their tool with 10 other competitive tools from other colleagues, but all of them get together to solve the same problem, right? And the reason for this, and by the way, this is such a big transition. There could be billion-dollar companies that will emerge from this transition. In the past, most SaaS was just system of record, because we humans wanted structured data that we could read back. So there was a database, we stored and we read it back.
Right.
But in future, we don't need that anymore, because we have AI and agents. Agents don't need to do the same, right? So, and if we can read it back in 10 different ways. So if somebody says, I want to use one CRM and somebody else wants to use a different CRM, why can't both point to the same database? Right? And yet have both UI or workflows or reporting different. I think we'll end up in that world sooner or later, where there'll be an individual will move around with their own stack and somehow learn to coexist with their colleagues and be extremely productive with a different stack. But then there'll also be this uberization of individuals, where there'll be a lot more consultants and less employees and so on.
So that kind of will change the entire dynamics of account-based marketing as we know it today, right?
So elaborate further.
So mostly in ABM today, the users are not the ones that vendors are trying to even educate. It's actually the decision makers or the check signer, so to say.
Right.
So somebody else makes a purchase decision for the users ultimately to use the tool,
right?
So if users then become the buyer themselves or the decision makers themselves,
totally,
then the ABM kind of entirely changes. The approach of how you then, from a GTM perspective, right? How you go about your ABM.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's just going to happen, right? I mean, that's just no way to avoid it, because in some ways you could say this is just extreme PLG. But I think it's different than PLG. But companies are not going to buy necessarily the same license for everyone. If people have different choices, like they buy different cars, they'll say, I'll buy different products. You're right that vendors will have to learn how to make billions of dollars, not through like $10 million 100 account, but literally millions of purchases of like $100 per month, right? And another reason why this is going to happen is because the pricing itself will shift towards outcome or lower. So eventually the the number of users in the TAM will remain same, but the spend they do will decrease, become 1/10, right? And so the companies or vendors that know how to sell to individual, slightly in a consumerized fashion, will certainly do better than companies who want to sell to accounts.
No, makes sense, and I think time is the only variable here. We can probably gauge 2 to 3 years, but it could be faster, it could be slower, but I think we are headed in that direction. So having said that, maybe one last question for today.
Yes.
How do you, or let me put it this way, what separates startups that end up making it big versus startups that either get prematurely killed or startups that never scale or never make it big?
We lived in an economy that was highly distorted. So startups that made it big were also oftentimes distorted, and because they got raised a bunch of money, or we are headed into an economy that is going to be highly efficient, no more distortion, right? This changes things. So I wrote a post a few weeks later. This is about this OODA loop, right? That fighter pilots use for training.
Yep.
So think about it. You are flying a jet, and your enemy is flying a jet. You cannot say that my jet is superior, so I will win this war, right? You have to assume that both the jets are equally equally capable, let's say, right? So then that's like the world we are headed into, where you have to assume as a go-to-market leader that everybody's product is equal. Right. Earlier we were told, no, our product is so much better. No, stop that. Right. Everybody's product is the same. Everybody is a copy of each other, right? Now how do you differentiate? So that goes to your question of who will win. I think strategic thinking, fast response time, rapid decision making, thinking big, and every time you build something, you subsidize your future by automating it, by agentifying it, right? So it's not brute force. Everything takes faster, less time than before, right?
Right.
Then you create a growth loop, and if you do all of this, you win. But if you don't, we are headed into a highly efficient economy. Distortions don't work.
Yeah.
So if you don't do any of this, I think it's just going to be difficult. There's no room for old school thinking anymore.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Santosh, for that. And whether you know this or not, I've implemented a lot from your posts. I've shared a few examples and instances with you, but there's a lot more that I probably haven't. But I think, and I can proudly say this, and if I've reached a stage where we are profitable, bootstrapped. Some I've had conversations with you, but most I've just looked up to your posts, and there's so many of them that look up to you, and I think we all need industry leaders like you, and they're far and few. That explains to why you have such a massive fan following, wanting to hear from you. But I think the reason I'm highlighting this is in somewhere in this podcast I mentioned I would be happy in life if ever I be 10% as successful as you are, maybe in the next few decades. I didn't mean it from a perspective of building, scaling companies alone. I think your impact to the fellow entrepreneurs in the industry, the ecosystem that you've created, that I'm personally aware of. I was mentioning from that context, right? If I reach a stage where because of me, I have an ecosystem of people that thrive and people that benefit. And the reason I'm mentioning this in this podcast is I think personally, if I want some of you to take a trade out of Santosh, it's that. If we all start to think that way, if there's something that we can give back and help our fellow entrepreneurs, because Santosh personally believes, and I know, and he usually doesn't speak of this, Santosh could have been a billionaire had he wanted to, but I think he chose to build and scale in a meaningful manner, and he has helped a lot more people grow with him. So I think that's the message, there's enough and more for all of us, provided we learn to collaborate. Santosh spoke about empathy. Santosh spoke about be genuine with your buyers, really care for them. You can't fake it.
Right.
You can fake everything else, but I think at some point buyers will find out who you are and what you do. So I think my key takeaway is just do the basics right. Be the real person, be a real company.
First principles.
Thing, right? First principles. So thanks a lot, Santosh. Maybe we'll do, if time permits, more of these. But yeah, I'm sure the audience would definitely have a lot of key takeaways from this, and maybe questions as they may come into your inboxes, and I'm sure you'll answer them. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm always open to responding, helping to the extent I can.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.